al-Qasim al-Mustafa Muhammad. وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. My condolences to you for the martyrdom of Bab al-Hawa'ij, Imam Qadim alayhi salam. When the Prophet of Allah migrated from Mecca to Medina, the Ansar very generously came to the Prophet and offered all their wealth in order to assist the Prophet, and wanted to give whatever small or large financial capability they had to Rasulullah. During this time, this verse comes that Rasulullah tells them that they are offering money, but Rasulullah says basically, if you want to reward me, if you want to help me, then do this. This very famous verse, and I'm sure you've heard it, 42:23, that Rasulullah is ordered to say, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرٍ إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. They want to give money, but he says at that time, Shia and Sunni, they say this about this verse. He says that you, Prophet, I do not ask any reward. Tell him, I do not ask any reward. And the prophets before, if you look at the Holy Quran, prophets before in Holy Quran said, I don't want any reward. Because sincerity of a person is usually known not to take advantage of, for example, your followers and take their money, for example. Because one of the ways to make somebody, for example, very rich and wealthy is to, for example, say you're a prophet or to say you're a holy person, and today this is happening in some different religions, and to get their money, for example, take advantage of them. But Rasulullah and the prophets before said, we don't want any reward. We don't want that money that you're saying, people of Medina. We don't want your reward. And this shows the sincerity of Rasulullah. But he demanded one thing. Illa, the only Rasul and only Prophet that had this illa, this exception, is Rasulullah. Illa al-mawadda, which is love or higher than hope, attachment to my relatives, to my family. When we look at this verse, we have many narrations, obviously, about that. Who is this for? From the family. Were the examples of relatives? Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam. Qurba, Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam. Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein alayhi salam. These are examples of family. Imam Ali alayhi salam, example of family. But look at these narrations that we have. They're actually very interesting when you come to the tafsir of this verse. One of them I will share with you is from Ahmad ibn Hanbal in Fada'il al-Sahaba. They ask Rasulullah, Sunni source, Ya Rasulullah, man qarabat? Who is your family? It says, من هؤلاء الذين وجبت عليهم مودته. قال علي وفاطمة وابناهما وقالها ثلاثة. It is Ali and Fatima and their sons, Hassan and Hussein alayhi salam, and he said this 3 times. So reward of Rasulullah's sacrifice in 23 years of what he did for us, to repay him. How do you ask? How can I repay Rasulullah? Have love and attachment to the family. Interesting, in India, Sunnis, they remember Imam Hussein alayhi salam and they hit themselves for Imam Hussein. For Ashura, they say the dalil is this, 42:23. This is the ajr, this is the reward of Rasulullah. We want to give Rasulullah his reward. So we're not Shia, we're Sunni, but we come and we hit ourselves for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, so this is reward for Rasulullah. 2, another book that, again, Ahmad ibn Hanbal is one of the four madahib that we have today, and 5 actually, 4 of the Ahlul Sunnah. Another book that is important is a book that has the tanzil, for example, in the tafsir, is Shawahidu Tanzil of Hakim Haskani. This is another Ahlul Sunnah book about this verse. And it says, when this verse came, the Rasulullah mentions about mawadda or qurba, mentions, إن الله خلق الأنبياء من أشجار شتى. Allah created all the prophets from a different tree, for example, different trees. وأنا وعلي من شجرة واحدة. Sunni narration. Me and Ali are from one tree. All the prophets are from other trees. We are from one tree. Then, very interesting. Again, this isn't a Shia hadith, it's Sunni hadith. Very, very interesting. فَأَنَا أَصْلُهَا. But this tree, I am the asl. I am the root of this tree. And Ali alayhi salam is the branch. فَرْعُهَا Ali, for example. Ali فَرْعُهَا. وَفَاطِمَةَ لِقَاهُهَا. And Fatima is the flower of this tree. How beautiful this narration is. And Al-Hasan and Hussein are the thamaraha, are the fruits of this tree. And our followers are its leaves. So you see, we have actually this tradition as well as the tradition for the tree, that me and Ali are from one tree, the prophets are from the rest, but we are one body. And very interesting, the followers of Imam Ali are leaves. And the other Shia narrations of this has that every time a follower of Ali Muhammad is born, a new leaf comes on this tree. And when one passes away, a leaf falls. So therefore we continue about this. This is the tradition he brought about this verse. Then he continues and says in the tradition, if a servant worships Allah between Safa and Marwa for 1,000 years, Sunni tradition, then another 1,000 years, and then another 1,000 years, so 3,000 years between Safa and Marwa worshipping, until they become like worn out water, for example, skin. But they do not have love for us, Prophet and family, tradition has, Allah will cast them face down to the fire of hell. What source is this? Not Shia source. Shawahidut Tanzil. Important book. For those that are interested in tafsir, they look at this book, for example. So this is another example that who is meant by al-Qurba here is the Prophet, Imam Ali, Sayyidina Fatima, Imam Hassan, and Hussein, and their children. So this is one proof that when we live our lives as Muslims, we have this obligation, either you're Shia or Sunni or Muslim, that you have to have love, and not only love, attachment to the family. How is this love? And how can you categorize love of the family of the Prophet? The first type of love comes from where? The heart. The first type of love that we need to have is to love them in our hearts. And we need to encourage our youth. Tonight's topic is how to foster love of al-Bayt in the youth today, in the new generation that exists. How can you foster love of al-Bayt? We'll be talking about this. Where do we have love? First, it is in the heart. And we look at those who are around the Imams, those who love the Imams, they truly had love for Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. They truly loved them while they were alive. Let me give you the story that once a person comes by the name of Harith al-Hamdani, maybe you've heard of this tradition. He comes to Imam Ali alayhi salam, who is the narrator, Qutb al-Rawandi ad-Da'awat. Harith al-Hamdani mentions, Taytu Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, Dhawta yawm nisf al-nahar. I came to him in the middle of the day. Ma ja'a bik, why did you come here? Possibly that he already met Imam Ali earlier the day. This is the second time he sees him. And he says to him, Qultu hubbuk wallah. I love you. Hubbuk wallah. I love you, Amir al-Mu'minin. Wouldn't you do the same thing if, imagine, your Imam was present right now, Imam Mahdi Ajalat Hafaj. Would you limit one visitation of him, or would you come to him second time, third time, fourth time that day? However many times, you'd come and see him. He says, I love you. وحبك والله. قال إن كنت صادقا لتراني في ثلاث مواطن. This is the effect of this love in the heart. If you are truthful, Harith al-Hamdani, you will see me in 3 places. حيث تبلغ نفسك هذه, until your spirit reaches, for example, he's going to die. أو ما بيده في حنجرة, his throat. because it reaches the hulqum. The throat reaches the hulqum, and this is where it leaves. Wa inda sarat, and this is the very famous tradition that whoever loves me sees me. 2, inda sarat. And when you think about it, these traditions, when would you need the most assistance? When would you need? For us, death and that actual action of death is very scary. Thinking about it, how much pain there is and how somebody is dying. And imagine when you're dying in those pains and they're taking the soul out and ripping that soul out, it's coming out. You see, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, because you loved him. Wouldn't all your pains go away? Because remember, I'm going to add this here. When imams come to visit you, it's not just visiting you to watch you die and be in pain. When Imam Mahdi visits you, he's going to remove the pain. He's going to give you whatever you need. Many times they say they saw Amir al-Mu'mineen, the fire was there in the grave. It cooled off immediately. So he comes to visit you, that pain is gone. It's comfort, it's ease, because you're seeing one of the greatest signs of Allah. 2, the sarat, very narrow bridge, that if God forbid somebody does not go through it appropriately, they will go into the hellfire. The sarat, very important again. Imam Ali alayhi salam comes. Not that you just see him, he comes and he grabs your hand, he takes you and takes you to heaven. And the third, وَعِنْدَ الْحَوْض, in during the pond, the Hawd of Kawthar. So this is the first type of love, and that is love of the heart. We didn't say so far how to foster this love. We're saying this is the first type. The second type of love of the family, and this is because of Imam Qadim alayhi salam, we're mentioning this. The second is lafzi. So one is qalbi, the second is lafzi, that I say it. Sometimes you love somebody, but you don't say it. Very important to say it if it's, your parents, your children, or whatever, or family. Say it sometimes. I love you, I like you, for example. And inshallah, that is more rewardable than just, putting it in the heart. A person came to Imam Bagha alayhi salam, and this is one of those traditions that the narrator here, this is in the book of Al-Kafi, and the narrator here is Al-Hakam ibn Utaybah. He says this, Al-Hakam ibn Utaybah says, I have never seen a more spiritual gathering than this. This is one of the gatherings that was very spiritual for me. What happened in this gathering? It was a crowded day, a crowded gathering. And people were sitting around with Imam Bagha alayhi salam. And an elderly fellow comes to the Imam, comes forward, leaning on his staff. He greets the Imam, and he says, Salaam alaykum to the Imam. The Imam obviously, returns his reply. Then he asks this question, and he says about his beliefs, that this is what he believes in. فَوَاللَّهِ إِنِّي لَا أُحِبُّكُمْ وَأُحِبُّ مَنْ يُحِبُّكُمْ. This is what I have. I love you, and I love whoever loves you. So this is lafzi, sometimes telling the Imam. Maybe it's important for us also to the Imam of the age. When you do ziyarat or tonight to Imam Qadim, say it. Just say, inshallah, they will hear it and say, I love you, for example. I love whoever loves you. And this second part is important because this unity between families, the first tradition that I shared tonight was that we are one tree. We're all together as one. We have to learn to love each other, for example. We cannot destroy each other's reputation. We cannot dishonor one another. And the second here is, I love you and I love whoever loves you. Are you truly like that? That whoever is a follower of Ali Muhammad, you love them? Or that maybe you will look over their faults, for example, because they're a follower? But this is how we should be. And he continues, those who have hatred of your enemies, for example, I have hatred of your enemies. Then he continues that I bear enmity toward the enemies. I disassociate myself from them. And then says, I follow your halal and I avoid your haram. The second belief I have. Whatever you make halal is halal for me. Whatever you say is haram, it's haram. Sometimes I might not understand these rulings. For example, something as simple as, for example, slaughtering dhib. Dhib of a cow and sheep is different than, for example, nahr of a camel. Camel, you pierce, for example, here. You pierce it, right? And a sheep, for example, lamb, you slaughter it, you do dhib, for example. But that's nahr. Why is it different? And what happens if you take the camel and you slaughter it like this? It becomes haram. But yet the blood left. I don't understand the ruling. Why do you have to, for example, pierce the camel in its neck to make it halal? Why? We don't really know the reasoning why. Maybe it's easier for the camel. Maybe that's how Allah, wants that camel to die. But regardless, are you going to make up your own religion and your own rulings because you don't understand this? No, you cannot. You follow the instructions. For us, usul al-aqa'id or beliefs is up to us to decide and see what is right or not. But when it comes to rulings you follow, you submit. So anyways, he says that whatever you made halal, it is halal. Whatever you made haram, it is haram for me. By Allah, I follow your halal, avoid your haram. Can I hope your intercession? And this is his question. Can I hope your intercession? If I love you, I love whoever loves you. And whatever you say is halal, halal. Whatever you say is haram, haram. Can I get shafa'at from you? Can I get intercession from you? And the Imam tells him the story that once someone came like this to Ali ibn Hussein alayhi salam. Someone came to Imam Sajjad and said the same thing. He approached was someone who had the same question. My father replied, if you die, your soul will join the messenger of Allah, Ali, al-Hasan al-Hussein, and Ali ibn Hussein. If you die, you'll be with them. With this belief, you'll be with them. Being with them not only is intercession, means you'll be with them in the hereafter. Your heart will be at peace, your eyes will be comforted, and you will be welcomed by angels of mercy. If you live, you will witness what you will please you, and you will be with us in the highest ranks of paradise if you have this belief. To love Ahlul-Bayt alayhi salam, to love whoever loves them, and to make halal, whatever they say is halal, whatever is haram, you stay away from. The old man was overjoyed. He heard this is higher. He just asked for shafa, and I was saying, oh, forever you'll be with us. You have a good dunya, akhirah. So overwhelmed with emotion, the old man begins to weep and cry. And the Imam and the others in the house wept with him. Everyone began to cry. Imagine such a gathering. They all began to love and cry because everyone had love of Ahlul Bayt. The Imam Baqir wiped the tears from the man. He wiped his own tears and consoled him. The old man left and he kissed the hand of the Imam, placed it in his eyes and chest, and left saying, peace be upon you. When the Imam departed, he says, whoever wants to see a man of paradise, see this old man. He is a man of paradise. Imagine that this is our second part of having love of Ahlul Bayt is lafzi, saying it and wanting it and talking with the Imam. Ziyarat, for example, Yasin that you do on Fridays, for example, is one of those ziyarat. You converse with him, salam to you when you do, for example, qu'ud, qiyam, when you're doing ruku, sujood, salam to you, Imam al-Zaman. Learn to talk with the Imam. Some of our ulama say is incumbent upon us, and sometimes we're ghafil, to speak to Imam of the age 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day, speak to your Imam, converse with him, talk to him, tell him you love him. This is lafzi. The third is amali, and that is by your actions. We see from the verse of Quran 3:31, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ. Tell him, messenger, if you love Allah, don't just say, I love Allah, that's it, and don't do anything. If you love Allah, then follow me, Allah will love you. Follow Rasul, whatever he says to do. If he says to go into battle, you go into battle, for example. If he says to perform the salah, to give the zakat, you do that, for example. This is one problem that we have in some communities, that we don't do the third part, which is the hardest. Follow me. And that is showing love, expressing love to Ahlul Bayt by your actions. By your actions. And this is the hardest part. Unfortunately, there are some, even though there are narrations about this, but there are some, they don't read all of the narrations. And they think the fact that I just show love, and I love the Imams like that old man, that I'm just going to be forgiven, and I don't need to worry about Amal al-Salih. But is this correct? Should we, when we preach Islam, when we talk about love of Imam Hussein and crying for Imam Hussein, is the point of this to just cry without any action? How come Quran always says Iman and Amal Saleh? Iman, Amal Saleh. Why does Quran always say that? Why so many narrations we have about shafa'at, that a person who takes their salat weekly, in a weak manner, will not get our intercession? So we have to be of those followers that were true like this old man, that in our action we show. When, for example, we know Khoms goes to Imam al-Zaman, and you never want to do something where you're in debt to the Imam of the age, I pay my Khoms. I pay my Khoms. I don't just say, I love you, I do ziyarat of you, and then did you ever pay Khoms? No. How do you calculate? I don't know how to calculate it. Do women need to pay Khoms? Yes, women also need to pay Khoms. Do children need to pay Khoms? Some of the Maraja, like Ayatollah Sistani, say, parents, you subtract, take that Khoms, and you're in charge of that Khoms. The fathers are in charge of the Khoms of the children even. Why? In the Khoms is Miftahu Rizqikum, the narrations. It actually opens up your rizq. So this is the third part that we need to learn, that if we truly love Ahlul Bayt, we will do what is wajib. We will stay away what is haram. But the true love, brothers and sisters, is that person that reaches a state where they don't do any haram anymore, and they love Ahlul Bayt so much, they know these narrations are from them, they don't do any haram, they give up. A lot of us have these, weaknesses that we do everything, maybe 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts, I'm weak. This part I don't do. This part's too hard. Everything, completely submission. Then Allah will love you. And this is the love of Ahlul Bayt that we're talking about, the amali and the action, that you are true. Look at the narrations. It says, our Shias, whoever lies is not our Shia. Whoever lies is not our Shia. Whoever sins, for example, look at Sifatu Shia. The followers of Ali Muhammad, they should be the most careful when it comes to halal and haram. And this is what Imam Kadhim alayhi salam has a tradition, that this is one of the knowledge that you seek what Allah wants from you. This is what you should be seeking. What does God want from me? Not whatever dua that you want to do or salat you want to do by yourself. That's good. But see, what is your duty right now? Your action. When we look at Imam Kadhim alayhi salam and we look at action, we see some of the companions, they followed exactly what the Imam said. Today, we have instructions from Imams. We have to act upon. It doesn't matter if Imam tells you directly or it's in Al-Kafi, for example, or the Marja gives you the ruling based on the works of Al-Kafi. We have about over 11,000 narrations, 10,000 narrations about Salat. Do you have to know why did Imams spend their valuable time to talk about Salat in 10,000 narrations? To learn how to do Salat. Some people, you look at them, they still do not perform the Salat correctly. So we have this duty. Ali ibn Yaqtin was one of the companions of Imam Kadhim alayhi salam, and he lived during the time of Harun. He was one of his ministers. And many people, they argue. I remember when we were young and we're talking about, can you be in government, can you not be in government? The first example they always give is Ali ibn Yaqtin. He was in government, for example. They'd give an example. But now, was he excused, by himself, or is it allowed to be in government? That's something else. Was he himself excused or not? So he was a minister that actually Harun trusted. And the tradition, it has this, that Harun once gave him an expensive black royal piece of clothing. It has a particular name, Khuz or Khaz, something like this, as a name, that this was a royal garment that he gave to him. Ali ibn Yaqtin takes this, and in the story it has that he takes his khoms and he puts this clothing. He was a simple person. He gives it to Imam Kadhim alayhi salam. He gives it to Imam Kadhim. Imam accepts the khoms, which is 20% of the income, but sends this back to him. Sends back this garment to him and tells him that basically one day you will be in need of this garment. He doesn't accept this royal garment. Then the servant of Ali ibn Yaqtin comes out to be a traitor. He comes out to be a traitor and says, look, you know what? This Ali ibn Yaqtin, your minister, that you trusted so much, did you know he was a follower of, for example, Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salam? Did you know he's like this? And did you know, for proof of this, I have proof that when he gives his khums, he also gave the garment, because he was there, the servant. He also gave the garment as well. This is my proof. So then Harun comes and he believes. He has doubt. He comes to Ali ibn Yaqtin, and Ali ibn Yaqtin was commanded by Imam, put this in your private, personal place, for example. He comes and he says, where is this article of clothing that I gave you? Because if he gave this clothing, it meant the slave, servant was said exactly, was accurate what he said. Said Ali ibn Yaqtin, because of the command of the Imam, gives him this article of clothing. So, here you go. Here you go. Harun apologizes. Oh, no, actually, I will not believe what they said behind you. He was in the confidence of Imam Qasim. He said, I will not believe them anymore, what they said about you. He says that servant needs to be whipped. And he says he orders them 1,000 times to be whipped. That servant who sold him out. I don't know if you know this, but usually whipping, how it happens is with skin. A lot of times people pass out after a few whips because it hurts so much. So after maybe like a lot of these whips, he passed out. Actually, he died, because who can take 1,000 whips? And he died. So this shows you that if you follow the Imam exactly what the Imam says. Now maybe, for example, Ali ibn Yaqtin could have says, you know what? I'll just give this. Maybe the Imam, he misread this. I don't want this article of clothing. Let me just give it to somebody else. Then he would have been in trouble. Then Harun would have came and said, you know what? You are one of the, for example, followers of Ali Muhammad, for example. So therefore, following the Imams has so much hikmah and wisdom, and therefore, when someone follows this and makes their lives completely aligned with the Imams, then they get the reward of this dunya and akhirah, inshallah. The life of Imam Qadim alayhi salam is one who is filled with oppression, because the Umayyads have now left, the Abbasids are ruling. And the Abbasids, there was hope in them at the beginning, because they said their family, for example, Abbas being family, they thought that they're actually going to help the Bani Hashim. But actually they turned out the same or even worse. They become very horrible people. At the beginning they dug up the grave of Yazid, set fire to it. But then the Abbasids become very horrible people. And you see the Khulafa that Imam Qadim alayhi salam lived under 10 years in the 34 years of Imamat. I want you, when you study history, 250 years of Imamat that we have, that physical Imamat, obviously our Imam is alive or benefiting from, but 250 years of Imamat, 34 of this 250 is during the life of Imam Qadim alayhi salam, 34. 10 years Imam Qadim was under Mansur. 11 years under Mahdi al-Abbasi. 1 year under al-Hadi al-Abbasi, who killed Hussein ibn Ali Shahid al-Fakh. And we talked about this Thursday night. Join us Thursday nights. Very important to remember Allah during that night. We talked about Shahid al-Fakh, someone who took care of Medina because of the amount of persecution that they're giving to Bani Hashim, to the Alawis. Not Alawis that we have in Syria, Turkey today. Alawis meaning descendants of Ali ibn Abi Talib. That they would force them in Medina to come every day and present themselves and give attendance. Who's there? Who's here, for example. And if someone was not there, they would force someone to be in ransom of that other person, for example. They would not allow followers of Ali Muhammad to have, for example, property, to go to the court cases, to bear witness. And then finally Hussein ibn Ali became very upset. Again, this is Shahid al-Fakh. He became upset, and they said, people came to him and they said, let's fight. Let's take care of Medina, as the family of Ali Muhammad. That's where the Imams, most of them were born in Medina or around Medina. So finally they begin to fight, and they take care of, very quickly, they take control of the masjid. They give a Shia adhan in the masjid. The governor leaves. The governor is afraid, he leaves, and Hussein ibn Ali does prayer there. Then, victory after victory, until finally the Abbasids bring 4,000 soldiers, and they kill 300 people. And this is known as Waqa'atul Fakh, that in the tradition of the Prophet or Imams, it is known as one of the worst instances after Karbala, Fakh. and they bring the head of Hussein ibn Ali to Imam Qadim alayhi salam, mentions Inna lillahi inna ilayhi rajiun, is saddened by it. Did the Imam, now there's debated, did the Imam say to uprise or not, or how much he was involved? We don't necessarily know. But Imams were saddened because this was a symbol of oppression. Because of the oppression they gave to the Alawis, he revolted. So therefore you see that this was the life of Imam Qadim alayhi salam, a life that he was very careful, and many years he was in prison. But now the message that that we want to give tonight, especially to the youth, is how can we foster love of Ahlul Bayt in the youth in the US, or if you're young yourself or your parent, what can I do to have them love Ahlul Bayt? Because we noticed that a lot of us had this opportunity to listen to very good either Nawha, Marsiyya, Lutmiyat, or for example, Sina Zani or Azadari in different languages, and this in generally caused us to learn how to cry for Imam Hussein and Ahlul Bayt. We had the chance to go to ziyarat all the time to your imams or sons of imams, and we get this affinity and connection to imams this way. But what can the youth do? They're on another continent. They're in a completely different time period. And sometimes some of my friends say, if you want, for example, those youth to cry for Imam Hussein, you have to use tear gas today and spray them with tear gas in their eyes. Inshallah, they go to heaven because they cry, inshallah, for Imam Hussein this way, as a joke. Do not do this, by the way. So what can we do for the youth? I'll give a few steps. One is this: to educate and cause awareness for the youth. They do not know the stories, a lot of them, of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. They need to learn more of the sayings of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Just sayings is sufficient. The hadith we have is, if they just knew how beautiful our sayings are, they would follow us. There is this teacher and professor that went to the Sunni area in Iran, and he just put on the whiteboard sayings. He didn't say who those sayings are from. He just brought sayings. And what he did was, on one side, he said the sayings of Imam Ali. Say Nahju Balagha and different books. Just put the sayings. And the college students, oh, so good, oh, so much wisdom, how beautiful. He didn't say it's from Imam Ali. They're in the Sunni area. Then he brought the sayings of the first and second Khalifa and others. And they're like, why, honestly, they said, why are you wasting our time? What is this? For example, the sayings, where is the wisdom that they have? Why are you wasting our time? We don't want this one, we want this one. Then he said, look, this is the sayings of Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is the sayings of Ali alayhi salam. These are the sayings of this. And they were accurate. So just having knowledge of imams and what they said. History is sufficient to follow Ahlul Bayt, but that's the first step. Give them stories, especially when it's shahadat. Or have some stories, have a little mini majlis at home, and inshallah they learn. 2 is role models. Developing that connection that a young person tries, instead of having a basketball player, for example, a UFC fighter, for example, whatever, to be their role model, even though it's always good to learn from one person, but everyone else has insufficiency or weakness. That's the problem. Like if they follow this, he's good at basketball, for example, he's good at UFC, but then he has other weaknesses in his personal life. The only ones who are completely complete are imams. So training and saying that, what would the imams do, for example? How did they live their lives? For them to be a role model. 3 is to be creative. Today, a lot of the youth, they don't just like speeches because they get bored. They have the TikTok attention span. And if they're watching me, for example, right now, they already swipe and go to the next video already, because a lot of them are not used to listening. A lot of them are just used to going in 3 minutes or 1 minute max to watching something. And if it's too long, I don't have that attention span. So we have to get creative for them. Make videos, short videos, or sometimes in art. Many people, I remember in Zainabiyah, we had this art gallery in Muharram, and it just showed beautifully some of the work of some of the artists that they drew and illustrated Karbala of Imam Hussein, and how much it has an effect just to see, for example, Imam Hussein surrounded with the enemy, with arrows, in his body, for example, or some of the artwork you saw that the horse of Imam Hussein with the daughters and family of Imam Hussein on the bottom, Ustad Farshjian, I believe. Art, for example, or podcasts, or using technology to be able for the youth to relate better. 4, practical applications to embody the Imams. For example, Imam Kadhim alayhi salam was known for generosity, to helping the poor. Or Imam Kadhim alayhi salam was known to be patient and to take in his anger, to give examples for the Imam and apply that. Say, look, your Imam is Imam Kadhim. When he was angry, he did this. When they insulted him, they did this. So take that virtue of Imam and apply that and show that. Give a practical application. 5th is youth programs, encouraging the masajid to have youth programs. Brothers and sisters, a lot of times youth do not come to these speeches. Inshallah, those that do, Allah reward them. But they like to go together to hang out. They like to have their own programs. Promoting youth programs, giving more resources for youth programs is very efficient. And then there, you can either, talk about al-Bayt or, talk about a topic that will, bring them closer. 6, because we're running out of time. Through dua, reflection, or lutmiya. A lot of youth, they like to listen to music. And if they, instead of listening to haram or music that is not, has vain talk in it or doesn't have reward or is mubah, for example, to share with them either in English or in Arabic or in Farsi or, for example, Urdu or whatever, a way of remembering Imam Hussein. And I knew a person that actually he was Sunni, and I asked him one day, how did you become Shia? He says, for Azza of Imam Hussein. I listened to Azza and I really liked it. I understood Arabic. This brought me to become Shia. And there's a lot of work has been done, in the Azza that is mentioned for Imam Hussein, the poetry that's recited. This is another way, or the du'as, for example, Ziyarat Ashura, for example, other ways. But the 7th way is something that maybe youth will link the most, is to link the struggle of Imams to the struggles of today. And to say, for example, Imam Kadhim alayhi salam lived in a time where government was very powerful. Was in a way that he was in prison, sometimes, some say for 4 years. That's Fatima Ma'asuma didn't see father until, for example, she was 6 until 10. She didn't see her father anymore. And to link that struggle that now Imam is in, we can dim the lights now, inshallah. I'll do some of the musibat for Ahlul Bayt, we can dim the lights. So now that Imam is in the prisons, and now Imam is in a way that there's no way for him to come out of prison, but yet he guides people in prison. They brought one person for him to tempt him, to trick him, to fool him, a singer, for example. And Imam did not give in. Imam did not, for example, look at this person. They said, why did you become a follower of Al Muhammad when you were sent to the prison of Imam Musa? He called him. I said, oh, I saw day and night he was worshipping and doing salat of Allah, worshipping Allah. And I would see that he would, after salat, he would just do tasbih and glorify. So she decided to just glorify Allah. Imam Kadhim alayhi salam, in the most difficult of situations and the darkest of dungeons, would guide people to Allah. We cannot do this. We do not have this duty to guide people and to relate our struggle to the struggles of Imam Kadhim alayhi salam. Assalamu alayka ya nur Allahi fi dhulumat al-ard. Salam upon the light of Allah in the darkness of earth. This you can interpret as the nur of Imamat, because Imam Kadhim alayhi salam was nur and light. And also maybe you can interpret this, that in the dark dungeons of the Abbasids, dungeons that had no windows, dungeons that were humid, dungeons that they would shackle his leg and his leg was bruised because of the chains that were upon it, that he was a light and nur of worship of Allah, but you know that you cannot extinguish the light of Allah. Assalamu alayka ya nur Allahi fi dhulumat al-ard. Assalamu alayka ayyuha al-imam al-salih, the righteous leader. Salam to you, Imam Musa, you call them. We have this belief that Imam Qadim alayhi salam is Bab al-Hawa'ij. Traditionally we say, not only I notice those in Iran or Iraq, especially those who lived in Qadimiyya, they know the effects of going to the grave and shrine of Imam Qadim alayhi salam. I was looking at some of the traditions and seeing that not only us, for example, we have in history, even those, for example, Shafi'i, Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i mentioned that he saw the grave of Imam Qadim alayhi salam, the grave of Musa ibn Jafar, is the tried and tested cure, he says. That even the leaders of the madahib of Ahlul Sunnah, when mentioned that going to the grave of him, his grave is a cure. Or some of the prominent scholars of Hanbalis in the book, for example, the prominent scholar of Hanbalis, Abu Ali ibn Khalal says, ما همني أمر فقصدت قبر موسى بن جعفر. Whenever I was difficult, I'm not Shia, but I am, lover of Ali Muhammad. Whenever I had difficulty, I'd come to the grave of Musa ibn Ja'far, فَتَوَصَّلْتُ بِهِ إِلَّا سَهَّلَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى لِي مَا أُحِبُّ. Allah, or ma ahab, uhib. Allah made whatever I love to become easy. He removed my grief. So if Imam Qadim's grave can do this for the ulama of Ahlul Sunnah, how about you who are, we said, leaves of the tree of Al Muhammad, where Rasulullah is the root and the branch is Imam Ali alayhi salam. What about you? What will he would do for you and the needs that you have? So Imam Qadim alayhi salam is in the dungeons. One of the ziyarat that we read from Imam Qadim alayhi salam, sometimes we read, for example, ziyarat Nahiya, which has descriptions of how Imam Hussein alayhi salam is killed, and not in another book. But also we have in this ziyarah from Imam Qadim alayhi salam about him in Misbahul Za'ir from Ibn Sayyid ibn Tawus, that he dresses, and when you say salam to the Imam, you say it this way. You say salam to the Imam, who was, I apologize for saying this, but this, inshallah, these du'as and ziyarat, hopefully this description is not true, but they say, وَالْمُعَذَّبْ فِي قَأْرِ السُّجُونِ. He is the Imam that was mu'adhab, meaning that he was tortured, that he was hit, that he was whipped in the bottoms of the prisons, فِي ظُلَمِ الْمَطَائِرِ, in the darkest of places, the most humid of places. Imam Qadim alayhi salam was tortured. The saq al-mardud bihalaq al-quyud. He is the Imam whose leg was bruised by the rings of chains. So much so that they say the dua of the Imam, after being for years in the prison, would ask Allah, say, Ya Sayyidi, najjini min habs Harun wa khallisni min yadeh. My Lord Allah, please save me from the hands of Harun. Khallisni min yada Harun. Finally, it says they came, and hopefully it's not true because the ziyarat says this though. It says, wal janaza al munada alayha bidhull al istighfar, and whose funeral was called with cause of humility and belittling when they took the martyred body of your Imam, Imam Musa Qadir. That they took this body and possibly his head is hanging out, his legs are just hanging out. Because when they saw him, they only saw a cloak, they only saw Abbas. He had become so frail. Now they say, this is the Imam of the Rawafid. This is the Imam of the Shia. And they disrespect the holy body of Imam Musa. I call them. Inna lillah, inna ilayhi raji'un. We will now mourn for Imam Qadim alayhi salam. Please recite salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على الأمين المؤتمن موسى بن جعفر البر الوفي الطاهر الزكي النور المبين المجتهد المحتسب الصابر على الأذى فيك. ماییم عمری بیقرار حضرت کاظم، دل داده ایم و جان نثار حضرت کاظم. ما عاشقان اهل بیت مصطفی هستیم، این خاندان را ماه پاره حضرت کاظم. از سفره موسی بن جعفر خورده ایم عمری، اردو زدیم در سایه سار حضرت کاظم. ما زیر دین هستیم از الطاف پنهان و امدادهای بیشمار حضرت کاظم. باب الرضا، باب الکرم، باب الحوائج، ما را همیشه راه چاره حضرت کاظم. ماییم و یک دست توسل وقت ناچاری، باید بگردیم در مدار حضرت کاظم. تنها نه سلطان خراسان را پس از مردن هستیم ما چشم انتظار حضرت کاظم. موسی بن جعفر، موسی بن جعفر، همه موسی بن جعفر، موسی بن ای جلوه نور خدا موسی بن جعفر، هم مصطفی هم مرتضی موسی بن جعفر، هم باب حاجات است و هم باب المراد است، هم درد عالم را دوا موسی بن جعفر، هم درد عالم را دوا موسی. گرچه غریب افتاده بین آشنایان، شد با غریبان آشنا موسی بن جعفر. موسی با یاد معصوم دلش غرق شراره، دلتنگ لبخند رضا موسی بن جعفر. موسی زندان به زندان ذکر لبهایش دعا بود، مرد خدا مرد دعا موسی بن جعفر. موسی عمری شبش در کنج زندان بی سحر بود، افتاده در دام بلا موسی بن جعفر. موسی بن بین غل و زنجیر ساق او شکسته، از ظلم آن بیگانه ها موسی بن جعفر. موسی بن جعفر در کنج زندان ذکر لبهایش حسین بود. ای روز خان کربلا موسی بن جعفر. ای روز خان کربلا موسی بن جعفر. موسی بن جعفر. موسی بن جعفر. خبر آمد که امام موسی کاظم را از زندان میخوان آزاد کنند. همه محبان او جمع شدند، آسمان را به روی تخته در می بردند. آسمان را به روی تخته در می بردند. تاج سر بود که باید روی سر می بردند. او درست است که یک همدم و غمخوار نداشت، بدنش روی دری بود که مسمار نداشت. لا یوم که یومک یا ابا عبدالله. کنج زندان خبر از بزم می و جام نبود. دخترش ثانیه ای در ملأ عام نبود. سر سجاده و در حال سجودش نزدند. هر دو دستش به تنش بود، دو عمودش نزدند. تن او ماند روی خاک ولی چاک نشد. تیغ خونین شده با پیرهنش پاک نشد. بود مظلوم ولی 7 کفن داشت به تن، گریه می کرد به جسمی که نشد غسل و کفن. حسین جان، حسین جان، حسین جان، حسین جان.
تشریف بیارن جلو، چند لحظه عرض ادب کنیم خدمت ساحت مقدس آقا امام زمان، عرض تسلیت بگیم. باب الهوائج موسی بن جعفر، 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 باب الهوائج موسی بن جعفر. داروی هر درد ما از دم تو میرسد، داروی هر درد ما از دم تو میرسد. حک شده بر سینه یا باب هوایج مدد، حک شده بر سینه یا باب هوایج مدد. داروی هر درد ما از دم تو میرسد، حک شده بر سینه یا با حک شده بر سینه یا می رود از زندانش با بدن بی جانش، ارض و سما گریانش گریانش گریانش. می رود از زندانش با بدن بی جانش، ارض و سما گریانش گریانش گریانش. دختر یتیمش میزند صدایش، میرسد صدای گریه رضایش گریه رضایش. باب هوایج مدد، باب هوایج مدد. بی حاجت نباشی هوایج مدد. یه بار دیگه باب هوایج مدد، باب هوایج مدد. تا که رها موسی شد هر دو جهان غوغا شد، چشم فلک دریا شد دریا شد دریا شد. مرغ پرشکسته از قفس رها شد، قبله هوایج حاجت حاجتش روا شد، حاجتش روا شد. سوی خدا رفتنه، نور خدا را ببین. سوی خدا رفتنه، نور خدا را ببین. گریه معصومه و حال رضا را ببین. گریه معصومه و حال رضا را ببین. باب هوایج مدد، هوایج مدد. با جگر صد پاره حسین، حسین، با جگر صد پاره گشت رباب آواره. نیزه شده گهواره، گهواره، گهواره. باب الهوایج حسدی اصغر. با جگر صد پاره گشت رباب آواره. نیزه شده گهواره، گهواره، گهواره. رفت روی نیزه رو به روی مادر. رفت روی نیزه رو به روی مادر. رفت نیزه انگار در گلوی مادر، در گلوی مادر. از دل عالم گره دست تو وا می کند. از دل عالم گره دست تو وا می کند. غنچه لب تشنه یا باب هوایج مدد. غنچه لب تشنه یا باب هوایج مدد. ای علی لای لای علی، ای علی لای لای علی. از یم حق سرشاری مثل عمو سرداری. تو نوه کراری، کراری، کراری. دست کوچک تو در تمام عالم شد گره گشا بر هر چه غصه و غم، هر چه غصه و غم. روزی هر روز ما از کرمت میرسد. حق شده بر قلب ما یا علی اصغر مدد. حق شده بر یا ای علی لای لای علی، ای علی لای لای علی. پیر عدو راهی شد، کار حسین زاری شد. عشق خدا جاری شد، جاری شد، جاری. خون پاک تو رفت تا به عرش اعلی. ای شهید تشنه، ای عزیز بابا، ای عزیز بابا. ای سند غربت خامس یا علی اصغر مدد ای نوه مرتضی یا علی یا علی لا اله علی لا اله علی عمری زدیم از دل صدا باب الهوایج را عمری زدیم از دل صدا باب الهوایج را خواندیم بعد از ربنا باب الهوایج را خواندیم بعد از ربنا باب الهوایج را عمری زدیم از دل صدا عمری زدیم از دل صدا خواندیم بعد از ربنا خواندیم بعد از ربنا روزی ما کرده خدا روزی ما کرده خدا از ما نگیرد کاشین از ما نگیرد کاشین هر کس صدایش کرده بیچاره نخواهد شد هر کس صدایش کرده بیچاره نخواهد شد کارش به یک مو هم رسد پاره نخواهد شد کارش به یک مو هم رسد پاره نخواهد شد یا باب الهوایج یا موسی بن جعفر آن که توسل یاد چشمم داد مادر بود آن که میان روزه میزد داد مادر بود آن که کنار روزه می افتاد مادر بود گریه کنه زندانی بغداد مادر بود حتی نفس در سینه او گیر می افتاد هر بار که یاد قل و زنجیر می افتاد جگرم سوخت جگرم سوخت جگرم سوخت مادر جگرم سوخت جگرم سوخت می گفت چیزی بر لبش جز جان نیامد آه در خلوت او غیر زندان باد نیامد آه این بار یوسف زنده از زندان نیامد آه پیراهنش هم جانب کنعان نیامد آه این اتفاق انگار که بسیار می افتاد نیمه شب موقع افطار می افتاد هر شب به جانش دست بد کردار می افتاد آنقدر میزد دست او از کار می افتاد واویلا 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 بر مشامم میرسن هر لحظه بوی کربلا بر مشامم میرسن
بر دلم ترسم ما آرزوی کربلا تشنه آب فراتم ای اجل مهلت بده تشنه آب فراتم ای اجل مهلت بده تا بگیرم در قبر شهید کربلا تا بگیرم در بغل صلی الله علیک یا ابا عبدالله. شیعتی مهما شربتم مغمن فاذكروني أو سمعتم بغريب أو شهيد فاندبوني من غريب کربلایم سر بریده از غفایم ای حسین جان ای حسین جان ای حسین جان ای نمک عزاداریا امام حسینه یه بار دیگه ای حسین جان ای حسین جان ای حسین
We ask Allah to accept our azadari for Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi salam. And hopefully it makes his son Adi ibn Musa Rida alayhi salam happy. And his daughter Hazrat Fatimah Masumeh inshallah happy. And the Imam of the age. Ya Allah, we ask you because of this holy name and these tears that we shed and this mourning that we have done. Answer everyone's du'as inshallah this tonight. Cure all of those who are sick, inshallah. Take oppression away from our lands, inshallah. Give victory to all of those who are fighting against oppression, inshallah. Give us kadhmul qayd, inshallah. Allow us to have patience, inshallah. Allow us to spread Islam properly in the US, inshallah. Allow our hearts to be full of the love of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, inshallah. Allow this love to pass on to our progeny and descendants, inshallah. Allah, we ask you to be of the companions of our Imam, the Imam of the age, and to expedite his return with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajal.